first things I need you guys to do, especially anybody who is just coming on, please put your first and last name in the chat. And, oh, okay, that's not to me, that's to Michelle. This is what happens when you get messages from and Teams. Let me go ahead and just close that out so that doesn't happen. And of course, this is being recorded, so everybody's going to hear that. So just put your first and last name in the chat, please, along with the site that you work for and your email address so that I can give you credit for your attendance. Again, please put your first and last name, your email address, and the site that you work for. I sent an email out about 11:30 this morning. It has a copy of this PowerPoint, and it also has a evaluation. Please fill and return the evaluation after the training so that I can send you your certificate.
Okay.
Just setting that expectation for you. And I will be sending the email out again at the end as well. Just
okay.
All right. So at this time, I'm going to ask everyone to please mute yourselves to minimize background noise.
Okay.
Okay. And you can, actually, I can help you all out with that. There we go. Mute all. Okay. Could I get a volunteer, either Delania or Mary, for one of you guys to keep an eye on the chat for me, please? While I'm going through the PowerPoint. Delania, you got it?
I'll do my best.
Okay. Delania, I was shaking her. It's okay, let Mary do it. She okay. All right, thanks, Mary. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. And this PowerPoint will be, because it is being recorded, it will be available to share. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so can anybody raise their hand and let me know if you're willing to share who your favorite teacher was growing up and why? Any volunteers? Sarah Diamond, thank you.
My favorite one probably would have been my 4th grade math teacher, just because he never gave up on any of us. No matter how hard the struggle was, he never gave up.
Oh, that's wonderful. My favorite teacher was my Spanish teacher, Kathy Driggers, and she and I actually even got in an argument in middle class, but in Spanish. But she was my favorite because she had real conversations with us. She found out what, just more than giving us assignments, she found out what was going on with us, why we had challenges, why we couldn't do things, and she helped us overcome those challenges, and she even got personal at times, and you could feel that she really cared about you and loved us. Anybody else want to share? Okay. Feel free to turn your cameras on. Participation is welcome here. And for those of you who are who are not sure what you're doing here, maybe you were voluntold to be here. This is Class 101 Pre-K. This is an overview of the class tool that is going to be used, that teacher-student interactions are going to be measured by when people come in to do class observations in your classroom. because of the new rule that has been put in place, all VPK classrooms will be observed with the next contract year. So this is a tool for you guys to help you understand what class is, what the pre-K class tool is, what it's measuring, and kind of what to expect when someone comes in to do a class observation in your classroom. Okay? All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on. Elements of classrooms that influence learning. Structure, process, and children's academic and social development. Can we all agree that those are definitely some of the main components?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
You guys can unmute yourselves now. Thank you so much. So structure is the what, who, and where. Curriculum, standards, materials, training, and education. Who can give me some examples of structure in your classroom?
Curriculums
What kind of curriculum?
like Tree Frog, or if you're a Christian organization, it could be like a Becca curriculum where you can just it goes guidelines to guidelines and goes from step to step, and you're always moving and you're always keeping the kids busy, so that way it's not a hassle with their attitudes and stuff as far as that goes.
Right. So that is definitely structure. And then structure leads to processes, right? That's the
Yeah.
how, that's the
Yes.
implementation, the relationships that you create with your students, academic and social interactions. And together they lead to children's academic and social development. Who can give me an example of a how, a process that they use in their classroom when they're implementing their curriculum?
Let's see how.
Consistency.
Mhm.
Consistency,
Yes.
right? Routine. How
Yeah, that's
about,
good.
Preparedness.
very good. How about how do you build relationships with your students?
Find out their likes, dislikes, bonding with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, something I did with even my toddlers is we would say good morning every morning to each other,
Mhm.
and we would have, hug or shake
Special
hands,
greeting.
special greeting. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a social interaction, right?
Yes, it is.
How about an academic interaction? What would be an academic interaction? I'll I'll give you a hint. You have to do at least 2 of them a year in VPK.
Assessments must be.
Assessment. Right. Um, so so with that being said, the class system takes those components and it observes those components and it measures them. It measures the effective teacher-child interactions that are done when you're implementing all those different components. And you measure it, and then we review it to help you improve, and then you learn some more. And it's just a continuing cycle, right? You
Mm-hmm.
learn, you
Right.
measure,
Right.
you improve. You learn, you measure, improve. And
Right.
that, my friends, is the goal of class observations, is to assist the system. And when I mean the system, I'm not talking about just the teacher. I'm talking about the director, the administrators from the bottom up, assist people to be able to recognize what their strengths and needs are and help them learn, measure, and improve. So the class tool provides a common language and shared lens for teachers, coaches, observers, researchers, and administrators to all use the same language. How many of you guys, raise a hand, have had children that speak other languages in your classroom?
Me.
Maybe,
Oh
yeah.
yes.
Is that not
Mhm.
difficult to communicate with them sometimes? right?
Yes. Yes.
So we want to all be on the same page. We want to all speak the same language. And the class tool, because we have so many different curriculums and so many different structures across the board of all the different schools that they have things in place, this brings us a common language that we could all use to speak with each other. The classroom assessment scoring system, known as CLASS, is a research-based observation tool used to help teachers and schools improve the effectiveness of classroom interactions. Everybody with me so far?
Yes.
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 All right. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So can I get a volunteer to read this one? Who'd be willing to read that one?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
The class tool and effective teacher-child interactions. Effective interactions lead to better cognitive, behavioral, and social outcomes. The class tool evaluates the effectiveness of teacher-child interactions. The results of the class tool identify strengths and needs, allowing for more effective support for those who are observed, and this leads to increased positive outcomes for both teachers and students.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Miss Kim. I'm hearing a little background noise. If that's you, can you please mute yourself? Okay. Whoop. Okay. Now the class observation itself. This is going to describe the class observation. A certified class observer typically observes for 4 cycles. All my peeps on the call who are observers, I have Miss Mary Brewster, Delania Price, Miss Janet Honors, even a class observer, certified. We are all certified. Each cycle includes 20 minutes observing and 5 to 10 minutes to score. The teacher student did this. The student teacher responded with this. This is what we're writing notes on. We are observing exactly what we see and what we hear, and we're writing it down so that we can measure it. When we're in your classroom and we're becoming the furniture, we'll introduce ourselves, but the goal is to become furniture and observe and to take our notes. And we'll do 20-minute, 20-minute cycles. And then once the cycle stops, we'll finish our notes and then we'll start the next cycle. And the questions that we ask ourselves when we're there is there depth? Is there higher learning? Who has an idea what higher learning might be here? What do you think higher learning is?
Building on what the children already
What the children
know,
already know.
expanding
Mm-hmm.
on whatever topic you're teaching or whatever area you're in, using different vocabulary words
Yes,
that the children maybe
definitely.
may not know.
Thank you, Miss Patricia. Definitely. And to go even further than that, how many of you guys have ever heard of the scientific method? Raise the hands.
Yeah.
This might be taking you back to elementary school, but so in
Yeah,
the
I heard that.
scientific, yep, the scientific method is where you have analysis and reasoning. You come up with a problem or a question, and you guys try to figure out how to fix it or how to solve it. These are all examples of higher learning. We're also looking for frequency. Is it consistent? Is that teacher and just as positive in the first cycle as she is in the 4th cycle? Does the same behaviors continue throughout the whole thing? Please, please, please. It is not a good time to change your routine when we come to observe you.
That's true.
Do not change what your schedule is. Do not change what you're doing. If you plan to do stone soup that day, do stone soup. If you planned on releasing butterflies on the playground, release your butterflies. Don't change your routine. That is the surest way to get those children to act up. But we look to see the frequency. Is it consistent? Are the children consistently responding to the teacher? Is the teacher consistently responding to the children? And the duration. Does it extend beyond the obvious response? Here, if I hold up a red block, what might you say?
What color is this?
What color is this? What is the only
What
right
gender?
answer? What is the only
Red.
right answer? Red. That's good. That's good, but we want to go beyond that, right? I have a red block. What else? How can we extend that beyond the obvious that it's a red block? Can somebody come up with an idea?
What shape is the
What
red
shape is
block?
it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there's only one answer for that, right?
Right.
Or the size of the block.
Yeah.
The size of, how can we find out the size of the block? How about that?
Measure. You can measure.
What can
That's
we
right.
build with the block? What can we make out of it?
Yes,
How many
these are
sides
all
do we have in this block?
really good examples that you're sharing that go beyond the obvious response. So we're
I
looking
see.
for duration. And then finally, what is the majority experience of the average student? We're not looking at Johnny who's climbing the walls. Okay? We are concerned if Johnny's going to get hurt, don't get me wrong. That has to be, taken care of. But as long as the teacher is acknowledging it and trying to resolve the situation without it interrupting the learning in the classroom, we're focused on the majority. If we've got 6 students with this teacher over here and only 4 students over here, we're looking at the majority of those students in the classroom. The same thing is if you have 2 teachers in the classroom and each of them have a group of 5, we're going to be looking at both teachers and both teachers will be included in the score. But we're looking for the majority experience of the average student. So for those 4 cycles, the average student in there, what was their experience? Not Johnny over here climbing on the walls. And how many of you guys always got that one little Johnny in your class, right? When the stranger comes in? Yeah,
I have 4 of them.
you have 4 of them. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Oh my goodness.
bless you. Interactions in effective teaching. The class tool organizes effective classroom
Mhm.
interactions into 3 domains. Okay. So you've got your teacher-child interactions. Is what you guys are doing in the classroom, right? You with me?
Yep.
Yep. I see
Yeah.
heads nodding.
Yes.
And then those are measured through emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. Who can someone read to me the blue box that is pointed from emotional support?
I can.
Who said that?
Me?
Go for it,
Millie?
Miss Melly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Positive climate, negative climate, teacher sensitivities, regards for student perspectives.
Right. What do you think positive climate is, guys?
Where children are supportive.
Yes, where children are supportive of each other, where they feel
Mm-hmm.
safe,
Mm-hmm.
Use
and
positive
they're
wording.
hmm?
Using positive wording instead of negative wording.
What's an example of positive wording?
Good job, Johnny. I would like for you to see if you can show your friends how to do it as well.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Millie. How
You're
about
welcome.
how close the teacher is to the students, right? How can you have evidence of a good relationship is when the teacher is willing to be in proximity of the students and when the students are willing to be in proximity of the teacher. You ever seen the stranger come into the classroom and all the children just kind of back up?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. So these are, smiling, laughing. Now, we're not looking for Mary Poppins or the hyena in the classroom. It has to be, real laughter. but so a place that you would want to be in, right? You would
Right.
want to be there.
Right.
Okay. Negative climate. And we'll get deeper into that. We'll touch that a little bit later, but negative climate is evidence of negativity in the classroom.
Wow.
Teacher sensitivity. Who can give me an example of teacher sensitivity? What do you think teacher sensitivity is?
It might be when you notice the student is off and you kind of try to figure out why.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what teacher sensitivity is. It's being sensitive to your students, right? And in order to be
What their
sensitive
needs
to your
are.
students, you got to know your students, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do your students go to you to resolve their problems? Do they feel safe coming to you? Do you help your students and resolve their problems in a timely, effective manner? So we'll get more into that. In regards for student perspective, this is probably a hard one for a lot of teachers. This is sharing control of the classroom and giving the students autonomy, respecting their ability to be independent and do certain things on their
Mm-hmm.
own and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have classroom organization. Who can read the blue box for classroom organization for me, please?
I can. Behavioral management, productivity, instructional learning formats.
Thank you so much. So behavior management, I think everybody has a pretty good idea what that is, right? How well can
Yeah.
you keep the behavior managed in your classroom?
Mm-hmm.
Productivity, are you able to consistently do your lessons and your activities and without a lot of pauses and dead air and dead time? Instructional learning formats. How do you present and implement your activities in your curriculum? What are you using different kinds of modalities? And we'll get more into that. And then instructional support. Can someone read that one for me, please?
Concept
Concept develop.
development, quality of feedback, language modeling.
Thank you so much. Concept development. What do you think concept development is? It's the how or why questions. It's
Oh.
that's where that scientific method comes into play, the analysis, the creating, the integration, but we'll get more into that. And then quality of feedback is talking about what is the quality of your conversations with your students. And language modeling, how do you incorporate advanced language in your classroom? How do you encourage the students to use more language? Any questions so far?
No, this is a good
No?
discussion.
Anybody,
Good
anything in
discussion.
chat?
No, there's nothing come up in the chat yet, Lily.
Thank you so much. Excuse me. So the first one we have is positive climate. When we're looking for positive climate in the classroom, because this is, again, we're looking for evidence. We write down what we observe and what we hear as observers. We're looking at the relationships with the students. Is there a relationship? Are the students interacting with the teacher? Is the teacher interacting with the students? Positive affect. Positive affect is, let's say, like the example that Millie gave earlier, where she said, "Good job. I love how you did that. Can you show so and so to do it?" Um, she's smiling when she was saying that. So we're looking to see if the student is smiling as well. That's a positive affect. Not that, not the kind where you stub your toe and even though you're in pain, you're like, oh yeah, fine. No, no, not not the not the fake stuff.
Mhm.
No, I'm good, really, really. Oh, yeah. No, we're looking for real positive affect where the emotions of the child mirror the emotions of the teacher and vice versa. If that child is crying and hurting, you're empathizing. You're not laughing or smiling, you're empathizing, you're showing concern. So that's positive affect. Positive communication and respect is the please and the thank yous and using the children's names. And things of that nature. Is everybody good with positive climate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions about positive climate? No. Okay, we're going to keep moving. Let me know if I go too fast, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Negative climate, negative affect. Negative affect is, what do you think negative affect would be? You know what positive affect is. What do you think negative affect is?
Telling the child no.
Miss Patty, what'd you say?
I'm sorry, like telling the child no, don't do that. I don't care. Just
Right. What would it be? There would be a better way to do that, right? Is to tell the child what you do want them to do. I mean, because if you tell them don't run or no hitting, what's the last thing they hear?
Run and hit. Run or
Right.
Run and hit. But if you say use your walking feet
Yes.
or use your gentle touches, nice hands, and of course you have to model that. What are nice hands? Then that's a better way of doing it, and that's positive communication. Negative affect is also irritability, anger, harsh words, peer aggression, disconnected or escalating negativity. These are evidence of negative climate. Notice I said evidence, because again, that's what we look for, things that we see and hear. Punitive control is yelling or threats, physical control, harsh punishment. If you physically take the child's legs and you make them go crisscross applesauce, that is punitive control, guys. We need to guide them by modeling our own feet, our own legs, if that's what you want them to do.
Okay.
If you want them to do crisscross applesauce, show them how to do it. Or guide them to put one leg over the other. But anytime you force the child to move their body parts to be put into a certain position forcibly, that's punitive control. Threats. I'm going to call your mother. Okay, really? How many times does that really work? Seriously. It's like, instead of I'm going to call your mother, an alternative would be to redirect them to what are two other acceptable activities. Give me an example, guys, of a reason why you might tell a child that you're going to call their mother or maybe put them in timeout. What might be a misbehavior in the classroom?
Hitting another
throwing
child.
Hitting another child. And then I heard, what was the other one? Throwing something?
chairs.
Throwing chairs. Okay. Definitely a parent-teacher conference on that one. But it's not going to help in the moment because it's not
the
like you
child
can stop what
slapping
you're.
you.
I'm sorry?
The child slapping the teacher.
That's horrible.
Oh.
So making threats, though, are not going to help that situation. And you definitely can't stop what you're doing to go pick up the phone and call mom. What I would encourage you in those situations is to stay calm, keep your voice low, and create a possible safe place for this child and redirect them to a safe place. For the one that's hitting the teacher and the one that's hitting the student, find out why they hit, what is going on. There's always more that's going on there. There's got to be a reason why they're hitting. And then you redirect them. So sarcasm and disrespect in the classroom, whether it comes from the teacher or the student, that counts. An example, sarcasm is something that is prevalent in everyday conversation, and it's done in a joking manner a lot of times, but it'll still count against you in the classroom during an observation. And then, of course, severe negativity. If there's a child that is, if there's an unsafe situation in the classroom, we will stop the observation. And if we have to stop the observation, then let's just say that wouldn't be good. Hopefully it never comes to that. I haven't had to have that so far, thankfully. Any questions about negativity?
No.
And for those of you who are running into those behavior problems, we do have resources here at the coalition. Feel free to email Quality. We'll be happy to get you some resources. If you feel like you need some help with those types of situations with the chairs and the hitting the teacher, that's awful. But we definitely have resources we can share with you. Teacher sensitivity, awareness,
Lily, I have a question.
Sure.
In the negativity, you didn't really touch on the sarcasm and disrespect. Do you have a moment to touch on that?
So sarcasm and would you like to give an example of sarcasm, Mary?
Sure. You always want to phrase things as positively as you can. However, if there's a group of children doing something and a teacher happens to say to a child, "Thank you, Mary, for untying your shoes." Now everyone's doing it. That's sarcasm. That is negativity. So just be mindful of how you phrase things. Okay?
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Nope. Okay. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. That's why we call you the wise one. All right. So we have teacher sensitivity, awareness, responsiveness, addresses problems, and student comfort. Awareness. Awareness is definitely not the teacher on the cell phone, right? That's definitely not awareness. Awareness is is the teacher monitoring the classroom on a regular basis? Are they aware that even that little Johnny really is climbing the wall here? Are they aware of that? Are they addressing it? Responsiveness. Do they hear Susie crying and they go and they try to help her in a timely manner, or are they working on this other stuff and then they'll go to Susie who's crying? Student comfort. Does the student feel comfortable going to that teacher for help? Do they feel safe? These are all examples of teacher sensitivity. And and when a teacher acknowledges the student's emotions, that's another awareness. I see you're sad today. Oh, let's see what we can do to make it better. And not only that, when you use those emotional words like sad, happy, silly, it helps the children identify what they're feeling as well. And sometimes a lot of behavior problems come from a child not being able to communicate how they feel or understand what they're feeling. Any questions there?
No.
Nope. Okay.
No.
Awesome. Regard for student perspective, flexibility and student focus. Flexibility.
Hi, Lily.
Who can give me an example of
What?
flexibility? What do you think flexibility means?
Sometimes you have to let the children lead, and sometimes teachers don't want to bend with that. They want to stick to what they're teaching, and kids have a tendency to get off subject sometimes. So you got to be a little flexible with that. I mean, you can still regain control of your topic, but you got to let them lead sometimes.
Excellent. That is so true, Miss Kim. Thank you so much. Is it okay if I called you Miss Kim?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being on the call. And so you got flexibility and student focus. Student focus is the focus is on you're focusing on the child and what the child's needs are. You're focusing on the classroom and what their needs are. And then you have support for autonomy and leadership. Do you have jobs in the classroom that the students can do? Is there a door holder? That's leadership. That's also support for autonomy. You're
Yes.
giving them opportunities to do things on their own. Are you buttoning all their jackets, or are you giving them the opportunity to button their own jackets and figure it out? These are all examples. And then student expressions. Do you allow the children, you might be reading a book, right? And you see, and there's a dog in the book, and you're trying to move on to the next page, but they're like, dog, I have a dog, just like that. I got a dog just like that. And they're getting all excited, but you're like, I got to move this along. Lunch is in about 20 minutes.
Uh-oh.
But we're trying to allow students to express themselves, and we're looking, are you giving the children opportunity to express themselves? So in that instance, you could say, yes, Johnny, you have a dog like that? That's great. Can you help me see if the dog's on the next page? See how I kind of move that along? But you
Oh, yes.
acknowledged him, right? You
We're
you you
still
said,
talking about the dog at lunchtime.
yeah, you're still be talking about the dog at lunchtime. Yeah. And then restriction of movement. Are the children allowed to move about the classroom freely to go to different centers? Are they allowed to get up and go to the bathroom if they need to go to the bathroom? Are they allowed to um, get in line by themselves and move to transitions with you? Um, you want to make sure there's not too much restriction of movement. Sometimes we get caught up in sit down. We're at circle time, or we're doing the weather right now. Sit down. I need you to sit down. Or you could give them an option. Do you want to sit on the blue cloud or the red cloud? Do you want to stand up right there by the wall, or do you want to sit down on the blue cloud? I have a son named Cameron Clemente Howard. He is a kinesthetic learner. I literally had a teacher call me one day and tell me he was flipping erasers because he couldn't stay still. He got to a different teacher. He was able to sit on a yoga ball, and oh my goodness, the behavior problems were gone. So
Amazing.
amazing. We have kinesthetic learners, people, and when you restrict their movements and they're like stuck in this little corner, and they're not allowed to even pat their hands or anything. It. How would you feel if you were tied up? Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Not
Would
good.
you learn very well? No.
No.
Lil-
No.
No.
All right. So
Lily,
behavior.
Lily,
Yes.
can we back up just a little bit um, to the previous slide?
The guide for student perspective. You got something, Mary?
Um, the slide before this one, I think.
So I'm kind of recording, and I'm on a time frame.
Okay,
But
but
I
we
can.
we
But we
have in
can.
the well, we have
We
in the chat, Lily, can you speak on when teachers ignore students?
Yes, I can definitely do that.
Okay,
Um, when teachers ignore students, that means that they're not showing awareness and they're not doing student focus, which is regard for student perspective as well as
okay.
teacher sensitivity. A lot of times these things kind of go together. Um, did you have a specific question about them being ignored?
No,
No.
she
Mm,
just wanted you to touch on it, I think.
Okay, it's not good to ignore children. Children who typically get ignored will act out, or they'll close up into themselves, and either way is not good, and it's definitely not learning. Um, I would encourage you to do your best you can to try to recognize your students at least 3 times a day, right? Greetings, goodbyes, and hopefully somewhere in the middle, at least 3 times a day.
Mhm.
So they know that you acknowledge them as a human person. Did that answer your question? Whoever that was in the chat?
Lily, that was from me.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of did answer my question, you moving into regard for student perspective. You also touched on it there. So yeah, you answered the question.
Okay, good. I'm glad. So behavior management, clear expectations, proactive, redirection of misbehavior and student behavior. Clear expectations, clear behavior expectations. I use this reference a lot. Sometimes children are like foreigners, right? If we got dropped off in the middle of another foreign country, a place where we didn't know the language, we didn't know what the acceptable behaviors were, we'd have to learn it. So we would need someone to tell us what the acceptable behavior is. But if we don't have clear expectations, we're not going to know what to do. Like if I was stuck in China, it wasn't until my husband explained it to me, but did you know that if you're in China and you don't slurp your soup, it's rude? So the clear expectation when you're in China is that when you go to eat soup, you're going to slurp. But if someone hadn't told me that, I wouldn't know. It's the same thing in the classroom. We need to give them clear expectations, let them know what the rules are and remind them what the rules are and let them know what behavior we want them to do. If we tell them to just go line up, okay, go line up where? Until they get used to that routine and they know what the expectations are, we need to let them know what it is we want them to do. Being proactive and redirection of misbehavior. What do you think being proactive is? Does anybody have an idea?
Prevention.
Prevention. I'll give you a infant. I'll give you infant toddler being proactive. When I do activities in the classrooms and stuff, I always make sure that anything we do that they're going to touch is safe if it goes in their mouth. Because what's the first place it goes for a toddler?
In their mouth.
In their mouth.
In their mouth. So I'm being proactive and making sure that before I even do this activity, whatever the materials I'm using are safe if they go in their mouth. Now, hopefully by pre-K, they're not doing that. But my experiences with infant toddler, majority wise, so that's what I lean on. But so you want to set yourself up in the classroom, right? You want to set yourself up and the children up and be proactive to be able to foresee problems and kind of take that out of the equation. Does everybody understand that? Are you with me?
Oh yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. If you see something that's going to be a potential for an issue, just find something else. Redirection of misbehavior. This comes back to what I was talking about earlier, where if you have, instead of timeout or making threats, redirecting them to other acceptable behaviors. If you don't want them to be playing in the book center right now because you're closing that up, give them 2 other acceptable things that they can choose from. If you're okay with them playing in the block center or playing in the drama center while you're closing up the book center, then give them those other 2 options. Try to give them 2 other acceptable options that you're willing to go with. And then with student behavior. Now we're not amateurs. We've been all of us have been in classrooms here at the ELC in quality, and we know that student behavior. Sometimes peers argue and they get disgruntled, and that's my toy, or you're looking at me. That
Yes, you're right.
these are all normal student behaviors. However, if it continues to escalate and the teacher doesn't address it, then that's a concern. That's definitely a concern. And if it doesn't get resolved, that's another concern. And again, we're writing down exactly what we see in here. Any questions?
No.
No, ma'am.
All right.
No.
So productivity, maximizing learning time. Who can read the last 3 for me?
We have routines, transitions, and preparation.
Absolutely. See how these kind of work all together, guys? If you're prepared for that activity, you're not going to have any dead air or dead time for the children to start wandering off and get interested in something else. If you have transitions in place that maximize learning, for instance, if you've got who has a song maybe they sing during a transition where they're learning like their ABCs or numbers or that, something of that. Anybody got anything like that? Miss Carmen,
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
got you have did you have something you wanted to say? Did you have a song or something that you do during transitions that help the children learn?
I just I have taught them where they we have a front door and then we have a back door. So when it's time for us to go outside, I start telling them that let's clean up, that we're gonna get ready to go outside. We're gonna go to the bathroom, wash up, and then we're gonna get ready to go outside. But any song, they just like to just as soon as I say let's clean up, we're gonna go outside, they start cleaning up and they get in line.
That is a perfect example of clear expectations and behavior management. That is wonderful.
Yeah, because you always gotta tell them, what's the next step.
Right.
Right.
When you have, so that's a routine that you have in place too. So that leads to productivity. So they know exactly what they're doing and they go with it. Transitions, other ways of maximizing learning times is if you're on the playground, and this is just an example, we don't generally observe on the playground unless there's a specific lesson going on. But just an example, if you're on the playground or you're at lunch or snack and you guys have conversations and you take those opportunities to teach them something during those times, like maybe they start talking about McDonald's and you're like, oh yeah, McDonald's has this and this, and then you're like expanding their knowledge. Like they talk about French fries and you're like, well, where do you think French fries come from? And then you start learning about potatoes and farms. That's maximizing learning time. And instructional learning formats, effective facilitation, variety of modalities and materials, student interest, and clarity of learning objectives. This is a biggie. This one and the next one typically gets the lowest scores. Um, effective facilitation is where you have the teacher's involvement and they're expanding the children's involvement. So you may start with an activity. Give me an example of an activity you guys do in the classroom. You got one, Miss Carmen? You got an activity?
Cutting.
Cutting? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I have some students that have problems with their fine motor skills.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is once they have a little like an issue or a problem, then I just give them some paper and I just have them cut, and they just cut away, and I try to teach them how to do thumbs up. But sometimes they don't have that yet. Some of my
Right.
kids, not all. So
When
what
you're
I do is I
mhm.
sit with them and I just give them a piece of color paper and they could just cut away and see where I could help them with, with
And
the
when you
cutting and getting that
and
fine motor skills.
wonderful. And when you help them, do you model it
Yes,
and do you give
yes,
them and you show them how to do it and stuff like that?
yes. I show them for what I do is I give them my scissors and with the paper, and then I show them, with the thumbs up, this is how we're gonna cut, and I
Hmm.
just tell them, we just go up and down, up and down, up and down. Sometimes they'll get it, and sometimes they just turn their hand out and they'll cut. But with that, this is my hand hurts, and I said, well, this is why we got to do it with the thumbs up so it won't hurt your
Build
hand or
those
your
muscles. Yeah.
yes. Or they switch scissors. A lot of my kids they like to switch scissors, so I have a whole bunch of like with the small holes and some with a big hole and the small holes. So they choose the ones they want
That is fantastic. That helps me.
to go with them.
Um, that is the perfect example for instructional learning format because there you have the effective facilitation. Carmen is modeling it. She's involved. She's helping her students. And then you got a variety of modalities and materials. She's got different size scissors with different size holes. And the students are interested. They're trying. And the clarity of the learning objective, what do you think the objective was, guys? Was to learn how to cut with the scissors, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That was the objective. So that's an example of instructional learning format. So we're looking for those things in the classroom. And then we have concept development with analysis and reasoning, creating, integration, and this is one that we have the hardest time seeing in the classroom sometimes is connections to real world. So analysis and reasoning, we're going back to that scientific method again. You guys are in the classroom, you have a problem, you're trying to solve it. Maybe you do a science experiment. And you know what? Creating is not just about art, guys. It's not just about art. Creating is also about brainstorming. Did you guys know that? If we hear students and teachers like brainstorming to try to solve a problem, that's creating. That's a type of creating. Integration. And integration is where, excuse me, integration is where you may have been talking about a book yesterday, or maybe in that morning, and here we are in the afternoon, and you bring the book up again. That's integration. A lot of times, a key word or phrase for integration is, do you remember? Do you remember when we talked about monkeys and we read the book, the 10 the monkeys jumping on the bed? How high did the numbers go? That's integration. Connections to the real world. You're sitting at lunch and you're drinking milk with the children, and you start asking the children, do you guys drink milk at home? What is it that they do outside the classroom that you can connect to what you're doing in the classroom? That's connections to the real world. Once they leave your classroom and they leave the site and they're at home, what is it they do at home that you can connect to what's going on to what you're doing in the classroom? And one of the greatest ways to do that is to ask the children questions, right? What do you do at home? Who do you talk to when you show them your pictures? Mommy and daddy? Who are you making that picture for? Right? Any questions?
No.
Nope. Everybody good so far?
Yes.
All right. We're down to the last two. Quality of feedback. Anybody know what scaffolding is? I'm giving you a hint.
Building, stacking up, escalating.
Yep. Stacking. Stacking one
Expanding on
less.
knowledge, prior knowledge to things.
Expanding on prior knowledge. Bingo. If you're giving hints and you're let's
Expanding that.
say let's say you're trying to teach someone to button their buttons, right? You're giving them a hint that the button goes in the hole, right? So you're giving them a hint and you say, where's the hole? Where's the hole? That's a hint. And then scaffolding is how do you, the steps that you take, the different steps that you take to help them button that button, right? First, they got to find the button. Then they got to find the hole. Then they got to put the button in the hole. Once they learn how to move their fingers like that, your scaffolding lessons, when you're teaching them how to write their name, do you teach them how to write the letters first, or do you just go straight for the name? You do the letters first, right? And then once they learn the letters, then they can learn how to spell their name. That's all part of scaffolding. Feedback loops, that's where you're talking back and forth. You and I am very appreciative of our feedback loops. We've been going back and forth, and thankfully I haven't had to be the only one talking. Having back and forth conversations with each other. Prompting thought processes. When you're asking the students questions, to encourage them to explain their thinking. That is prompting thought processes. So, like, for instance, what were you thinking when you wrote your name like that? What were you thinking when you drew the dog? Right? And providing information. That's where we come back to that McDonald's and French fries. French fries are made out of potatoes. You're providing information and encouragement and affirmation. All right. You guys know that encouragement is good job, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. High fives, kiss your
Thumbs up.
brain,
Mm-hmm.
thumbs up. But we're also looking for affirmation. What do you think affirmation is?
Isn't it more about saying something like, I like how you did this, or
Yes.
how you complimented this person, that kind of thing?
Yes. Yes. It is about affirming that what they did is an appropriate, pleasing behavior, right?
Right.
You're affirming that they did good. Sometimes maybe some of you are one of the, those, I had a friend of mine who puts affirmations in her mirror. I am beautiful. I am smart. You're right.
Right.
Um, so you want to give them encouragement, but you also want to tell them specifically why. So and if they know that you're giving them this positive attention because they're using their walking feet and they're using gentle touches, guess what they're going to want to do again? They're going to
Use
want
their
to
walking.
repeat.
Gentle touches. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. And we want that, right? So
Right.
not only say good job, but tell them why good job and use their name. If I sit there and say, all y'all did a good job, and I just leave it at that, you don't know what you did. You know what I did a good job doing what? If I say, you, I like how you drew that. Okay, you have no idea other than I'm pointing in that direction who I'm talking to. So you want to be specific. I love Janet's beach scene, man. That's just awesome. I want a beach scene. Janet's got this beautiful beach background. I'm jealous. So, language modeling, frequent conversations, open-ended questions. What is an example of an open-ended questions? Anybody know?
What happened when?
Open-ended questions are like how and why questions. Repetition and extension, self and parallel talk. I have my hand on my chest. That's self-talk. When you're talking about yourself, that's self-talk. When you're talking about someone else, that's parallel talk. Miss Kim is taking notes. That's parallel talk. Advanced language does not mean teaching students a second language. It means that you're using advanced words. Doesn't matter that they can do it in sign
Mm-hmm.
language or they speak in Spanish. But if you go from talking about flowers and then you expand on that and you start identifying names of flowers, maybe a type of species of flowers, that's advanced language. That's bringing more information in. Maybe you start off with dinosaurs and then you advance the language to the names of dinosaurs. And if anybody had to ever pronounce those things, you know that's definitely advanced language.
Yes, it is.
So, and repetition and extension. Are you repeating what the child says to let them know that you understand them and then extending what they're saying? Any questions? Okay, these are, we're
No, it's
running
been
out of
pretty thorough.
time. We're running out of time. And so these are examples of open-ended questions. What happened when? What do you remember? Tell me about your, what do you think? How do you know that? And tell me how you would make or build. What do you think that? What could we do differently next time? Any questions at all?
No, ma'am.
No.
All right. In that case, please write your name and where you work at and your email address one more time. And I will email a copy of this PowerPoint for you guys because I bet you all want it, right? You want a copy of the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah. I will
Yes,
email you
please.
I will email you a copy of the PowerPoint along with the evaluation. Again, please fill out and return the evaluation to get your certificate. As we say goodbye, I want to leave you with this final thought. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn.
Mm, that's,
Oh, that's
That
nice.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Benjamin
Lily,
Franklin.
Lily, where was that survey?
It's going to be emailed.
Okay,
Need a
awesome.
copy of that too,
I'm going to go
Liliana.
ahead and stop the recording real quick. Stop.